Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Savania DeBarros.
Hello, everybody. I am back again. Savania DeBarros, the protector of athletes. And you guys already know I am the founder and principal attorney of the S.L. DeBarros Law Firm. And today I have Miss Helen Williams with me, and I'm so excited to speak with her live on What Are You Sporting About podcast. But first, I want to remind you guys that there is a new book that is launching the end of July, and I'm super excited about it, called Athletes Making Moves. I want you to go and find all the information. You can find that at prosportlawyer.com. You can also do that by going to athletesmakingmoves.com. You can sign up for the book launch. There are going to be amazing gifts and things that we're going to put out there to the social media world because we want you guys to be involved into this next phase. So Athletes Making Moves, the subtitle is Secure the Future by Protecting Your Name, Image, and Likeness. We want to make sure that all of you guys know and recognize that you have a name, that you have an image, and you have likeness that deserves protection. So go ahead to prosportlawyer.com right now or athletesmakingmoves.com and join the Facebook and Instagram group at Athletes Making Moves. So without further ado, Miss Helen is in the house. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Miss Helen because we know some of the same people.
The world is small.
The world is so small. So Miss Helen is the CEO of HMW Sports, LLC, and she helps coaches advance their careers by providing them with leadership and management tools that allow them to be more mindful, planful, and strategic with their professional development. She's also the author of the book, Coach Like a Mother, which is a guide for the 21st century sports coach. Thank you so much for being here. I definitely want to learn more about HMW, what you do there. And then I definitely want to hear about the book, though, Coach Like a Mother.
Yeah, well, the HMW Sports came about because when I got out of coaching, I really didn't have any direction as to my next step. And it was not a good feeling. And I wanted to make sure that coaches understood that they need to be, strategic with their professional development while they're coaching. Our profession, we're so we're servant leaders, and that's our mentality. And we often forget about ourselves. So finding time to make sure that we're approaching our career and our lives in a holistic manner really makes it for a better quality of experience for the student athlete. And that's really what I got into coaching for. So I wanted to continue with that. And there were some things that I thought that I could have done better when I was a head coach if I had had someone like myself, essentially an executive coach, who'd sat in that seat that I could bounce things off of, that could help me if I was an assistant, develop a roadmap in terms of how I wanted to, how I wanted to get opportunities. And then also, I'm just very passionate. I'm trying to change the paradigm. Coaches, we work hard and feel like if we, put our head down and grind, someone's going to find us, but that's not how the world works. And so I wanted to make sure that I helped them understand that you can be proactive and you can actually direct and manipulate your career in coaching. So that's kind of where that came from.
That is so cool. So before we dive into all of the content, though, because there's a lot of beautiful things about you that I absolutely adore, I do have to pose the question, what are you sporting about to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, I've always been a big proponent of sports and how it can enhance your life. I know that it literally saved my life. And so I will spend all of the rest of my life just sort of paying it forward and using sports. It's something that brings people together. Instead of us dwelling on our differences, we celebrate the things that that we're doing together. And that's kind of what I think to that answer.
So, Miss Helen, the first time I saw you or learned about you was through LinkedIn, and there was a panel you were sitting on around social justice issues. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to have her on my platform. I want her to just be in something that I'm doing. So I definitely want to talk to you about issues of social justice because we've been, and I like to call it a season. So we've been in this pandemic season, but also a social justice awakening, right? And a lot of people, I want to say a lot of people's eyes have been open to some of the inequities that exist in America. People abroad have been seeing the inequity that a lot of African Americans have been faced with. So what, I guess, like your position as a coach or former coach, former athlete, how do you use your position now to try and for lack of a better word, sport for social equality for everyone?
Yeah, I think I just try to, with the work that I do, help coaches find ways to communicate, facilitate relationships and opportunities for their athletes. I think people forget that athletes are people too. They have lives, they have families, they are experiencing all these things that you see on television or, via social media. And so they're not in a bubble. They're not unaware of the things that are going on. And any coach worth his or her salt is going to help their players grow. And that's part of the growth process, is helping them work through these things that they believe in and giving them opportunities to do that, guiding them with those opportunities and facilitating any relationships with those opportunities. And again, it's a life lesson. And so that's what I try to, help the coaches do with their athletes.
So there was a former guest on this show, and we talked a lot about psychology and the psychology around sports from the angle of coaching. So being yourself, a coach, right? And a person who is really trying to show other people that there are better ways to do this thing, something that you wish that you had, what would that be? And I'm preferencing Jesus. I am preferencing that with the fact that this individual said that coaching is one of the most common areas, especially in the most popular sports, where abuse can thrive, right? Our young kids or young college students, maybe even pros, will put up with more things that are mentally detrimental to them and spiritually so, because there's something that they feel like on the other side they can get to if they take that sort of abuse, and it could play out as trauma. So what are you doing to help change the narrative around coaching?
Well, I think that what we often forget, as coaches, is that the X's and O's is just a very small part of it. I mean, you have to have the subject matter expertise, don't get me wrong, but it's all about developing relationships and really getting into coaching for the right reasons. If you're getting in it for money, it's probably not going to be a good coach. But understanding that in order to be successful, you really have to take a look at yourself. What kind of person am I? What kind of communicator am I? What kind of leader am I? And then understand that all of that has to evolve all the time. You can't just stay static, because the times change and the environment in which our kids are growing up have changed. It's not like you're back in the day, right? And you can't approach it. Well, back in my day, we did this. You can't, because it's a different world. And so you have to be willing to, I think, take the foundational things which have never changed. I think hard work, respect for authority, treating people the way that you want to be treated. Those things, regardless of the generation, time, decade, or whatever, those things don't change. But understanding that the way people communicate, the way your athletes process information, no one is the same. And so how am I, as a coach, developing myself holistically so that I can communicate and lead my players and my staff, and sometimes, a lot of times, the community, in a way in which it's beneficial to helping my athletes grow as people. And as odd as it may seem, those things actually help you be more successful on the court, because you develop that trust in your players. When I was playing, see, here's my back in the day already. When I was playing, if your coach said something, you just did it. If they said run through a wall, you just ran through a wall, right? Well, players are willing to do that now, but they need to know why. How is it going to benefit me? And there needs to be some trust there. So understanding your communication patterns and how you deal with people, I think, is really important. I don't think enough coaches really take enough time to be introspective and self-aware and self-reflective.
That's a mouthful. So understand your communication patterns. I love that because I don't know. Can you just break that down for me a little bit? Because like what I think about is how do you have a communication pattern, or how do you create that? And how do you even recognize if you're in the wrong communication pattern?
Well, hopefully you recognize that before you get fired. Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. But what I've come to understand is that every interaction we come to with people, whether it be our staff or a significant other or an athlete, we come to those interactions with what I'll call our filters. And our filters are the experiences that we've had in our lives, the way we've grown up, the things that we've experienced. And so we come to a particular scenario with those things in the back of our mind. For instance, if you were someone who was not raised with a lot of money and you had to work for everything you get, if you're a coach, you get a kid who pretty much has gotten everything they wanted. You have to understand coming into that relationship that they didn't grow up the way that you did. And whatever issue they're bringing to you, if you think it's the stupidest thing in the world because of the way that you've been brought up and the way that you live your life, to them, it's a valid issue. So you have to understand that there has to be a way for you to communicate with that kid and find out why that's a valid issue for them, even if in your own experience, it's not it's not a big deal.
That makes sense to me. So it centers around a lot of cultural differences, environmental differences. I mean, even someone who may be from the same community, could grow up in a different environment and have different perspectives on how certain things are. And so you're really on a curiosity journey to understand the child or the young adult who's in front of you, to have an awakening, an awareness, a different perspective, to truly understand their position. And that, what I'm taking what you're saying, that in itself will help you to be a better communicator, someone who better understands the people who are really underneath you, as as a person who's guiding them to a next phase in their life potentially. So that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it that way as a communication pattern. I was over here laughing when you said, well, hopefully you recognize it before you get fired.
I mean, hey, listen, full disclosure, I was one of those coaches that didn't pay attention to those things when I was coaching. It was all about, I got to watch film, I got to recruit this player. And while those things aren't unimportant, it doesn't matter if you have the best players, if they haven't bought into what you bring to the table, if they don't believe in what they believe in your coach, if they don't feel like you care about them as a person outside of the sports. And I know we hear that a lot. It sounds like a cliche, but it's very, very true with these kids, especially nowadays. Important for them to feel like you would care for them if they weren't on your team.
That's deep. That's deep. Yeah, because I think a lot of athletes may feel like maybe some coaches only care about the ones who get the most attention, right? So let's bring the name, image, and likeness in here for a second. So many states have passed legislation for name, image, and likeness. What about the kids who are dominating sports in their states? Maybe even in high school, right? Will the other student athletes get the same attention that they need to not just be an athlete, but just to be a well-rounded person? So that's going to be something interesting to see in terms of a balancing act and how the communication plays out with coaches across the country as this thing picks up.
Yeah, the thing about the name, image, and likeness that I always think about is we don't know what we don't know. We have no idea where this is going. You can put in all kinds of legislation and things like that, but there's always unintended consequences with every decision. Some of those may be good and some of those may be bad. So as a coach, for me, it's really important for you to educate your players as much as possible, whether it's the rule, whether it's financial management, whether it's marketing, whether it's, ethics, and making sure that if you have this, endorsement, that it's not at some place that doesn't align with the values of our program and our university. It's not going to make any of us be seen in a negative light. And so we really have no idea, and it's going to be an interesting ride to see this as it plays out over time. And it's not going to be every athlete. And so you talked earlier about making sure everyone feels, that they're a part of it. I think for me, it comes when I played, I was a walk-on. So I never played. I can remember every point I scored, which tells you how much I didn't play. So I know how important it is to make every person on that team feel like there's a role for them and that they can contribute and that they have value. No different than in the corporate world. Everyone needs to feel like they can add value to the organization and that they need to be validated on a consistent basis. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
That's going to be amazing. But one thing that is also important to know, even the students like yourself who walked on, you probably already had different ideas in your mind about what your future was going to look like anyway, right? So is that true or no?
Well, I don't know that I was that advanced at that age. I just knew that I wasn't really sure how, but I knew it was important for me to be on the team for my future. As I said, it practically saved my life. So I knew that I was going to get something out of it. I may not have been able to articulate it at that time specifically, but everyone has gifts, and this NIL may allow those kids who maybe don't have the physical gifts to take advantage of other gifts that they have with their name, image, and likeness. You don't have to be the best player on the team. You may have some other. I truly believe we all have a gift to give the world that only we can give. And so if you are that last person on the team, there's still something of value that you have to offer. It may not be physically so. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, we don't know what we don't know about this whole process.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how everything plays out. And what I do know is now with the opportunity that so many people didn't have, that I didn't have, that you didn't have, to make some form of income with your particular gifts, it's going to also open the door to some other stuff too. So it's also equally important for athletes at the collegiate level to have folks like yourself to help them start planning. And one of the things that you do in your business is help athletes to create strategic plans or maps for their career and professional development. I definitely want to hear more about that and how it can benefit athletes now, or those who are finding themselves in a situation where they know they need to carve out something. They need to figure out what they're passionate about and start creating plans to really take advantage of their gifts for future purposes.
Yeah, I used to tell my players all the time to follow your bliss, right? Because you're graduating at 21, 22, unless you're one of the outliers, you're going to have to work for about 50 years. So you don't want to be doing anything that you don't enjoy. And so you need to, it's all about two things. It's about self-reflection and also about the relationships that you build. So what do I love to do? How can I monetize that? And what relationships do I need to build to help me monetize that or to help me get that particular position? And that's really what it's all about developing mutually beneficial relationships once you figure out. And there are going to be some things that you do, and the purpose of doing that is to find out you don't want to do it or you don't like it. So you have to, go through these stages where you're doing things, but you will eventually wake up. I knew when I got out of coaching, there was something that I wanted to do and I just couldn't figure it out. And then literally one morning I woke up and I had an epiphany. I was like, oh, this is what it's going to look like, because I had tried all these other things and gained skills and knowledge along the way. And then I woke up one morning, I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So making sure that you're constantly, seeking out opportunities for yourself, seeking out the right strategic relationships, and you'll eventually figure out what you want to do. And sometimes it's a long process and sometimes it's not, but that's where it's really important for you to run your own race and not compare yourself to other folks.
Ooh, don't compare yourself to other people. I tell you one thing, I think for a lot of athletes, because we are so highly driven to achieve different things, it's kind of hard to not compare yourself to other people. So how do you manage that? Because if you take the youngest athlete, right, who's saying, okay, well, I want to be like so-and-so, let's say LeBron, for example, and let's just say they're close to being something of the same caliber as LeBron. How do they not compare themselves?
It's a lot easier said than done. But I think just really spending time figuring out what your gifts are is key. And, we all go through those periods where we're like, dang, I should be, here right now. Look at this person and they're doing this and I want to be at that position. But everyone has their own journey. They have their own things that they're dealing with that maybe we don't see every day. So it may look on the outside like they're way up here, but they're dealing with things as well. So I remind myself of that. And then also just take stock of what I've done, that other people haven't done. And more than anything, I make myself get out of your feelings. Like you're wasting time, being jealous or worried about this or the other. Just get to work, and whatever you want will manifest itself if that's your destiny.
One thing I had to learn a long time ago is all these people that we see on television, in the media, whatever, they're just people. They are just people. And you have to keep reminding yourself that even if it's people that they are just people. Right. And whatever they accomplish, you can accomplish yourself. But you're right. Like if you start taking your mind off of your own life journey, your own life sport, for lack of a better words, and focusing on the next person, hoping that you get whatever they have, you may not be able to achieve that because you're not focused on your own individualized gifts and what you need to be doing with your gifts. And sometimes things don't play out the same way. Like you may have a similar gift that someone else has who's been in the media, but maybe your gift is supposed to take you a different route. Maybe you're supposed to be a silent giant, someone who's making major moves in the background, who know all the important people, but maybe you're not in the media, but you're changing lives. You're changing millions of lives. So thanks for putting that out there, because I think a lot of folks struggle with comparing themselves to other folks and are constantly trying to do some of the same things and become frustrated when it does not play out the way that they think it should play out. So that's important.
Yeah, I think, and I'm a big believer that, what the universe has in store for you, no one can take away. It's just that everything that you go through is leading you to that, whatever that is. And we want instant gratification. We want to know what that thing is, and we're impatient. And you just have to keep moving on, and even through your mistakes, those are part of the journey. And understanding that and being aware of that, I think, is really important, because none of us succeed at everything that we do.
True. Sometimes you have to fail, but I'm a firm believer. I think Mandela said that I never lose. Either I win or I learn something. So every failure should be teaching you a new lesson And if you take it that way, you will never fail because you're just sharpening yourself. Like my mentor always says, iron sharpens iron. And it's true, like he sharpens me on a daily basis. We talk about almost everything, including the law, but just having someone who is equally bright and willing to take any of the troubles that I so-called find myself in as a professional, it helps to sharpen me each and every step of the way because I can learn from my mistakes. And so anyone who is in business and entrepreneurism, who's an athlete looking at what their next journey is and hoping that, or upset because something didn't work out, you haven't lost yet. You only lose if you give up.
Totally agree.
Now, Ms. Helen, you are a host of a show called A Coach for the Coach. I want to know more about that. What do you do on this show? What is your, what's the mission behind it? What are you hoping that people get out of it?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big believer that you can, manipulate your career, that you can strategically plan your career so that you can get the right fit. And I think that coaches, we don't think enough about all the things that we need to know off the court that are going to make us either successful or not. But it's also a curiosity journey for me. Like I'm always curious about how people have done what they've done to be successful. And so I call on all my friends and I make them come on the show and we talk about different things. But I've called up people that I didn't know and said, hey, this is really interesting. This can educate my coaching audience. And that's my main purpose, is to educate the coaches so that they do a better job, so that these athletes have better experiences. And it comes with, the type of coach you are. A lot of coaches get in the business and they coach the way that they were coached. And that's not necessarily always a good thing. But we also don't take enough of an academic approach to coaching. And so just making sure that you're evolving and learning and improving. So I wanted to provide a platform where coaches could come and learn and grow from each other, from my guests. I wanted to provide kind of like a coaching village where you could go every Sunday at 6:30 and learn something new that's going to make you a better coach.
Wow, that is awesome. That is so good. You said that some coaches come and they coach the way that they've been coached, which is not always good. And I agree. I've seen some coaches, especially the younger generation of coaches, who come up and I'm like, that's how y'all talk to these kids. I don't know about that, So we definitely have to reorient the way people think and communicate to children, because that instinctively, you're grooming the next generation if you think about it. Like I legit just sent a message, tagged both of my high school and my college coach on messages because I gave them a shout out in this news feature that I was in. And I'm just thinking about how instrumental they've been in my life, and I haven't seen them in person for years, but I still hear my track coach saying, mind over matter, keep it moving, Savannah. Then my college coach, it was always there as a father. I can bring some of the toughest conversations to him, and he would keep my conversations in confidence. And he would push me, and he put me in a position of a leadership role, even though we didn't have a so-called leader on the track team in college. But it was so important to me to have individuals like that, and men at that, who could really cultivate a certain characteristic in me that to this day, I know it's because of them that I am who I am a part of. They are a part of me, and I have achieved a certain level of success because of the things that they've instilled inside of me. So coaching is so important because you just never know. You don't know how these children or young adults may grow up and what they may do based on what you've said to them or how you've treated them and what you've put into them. I always feel like it's my grandmother would call it like planting. You're always planting for a harvest. You want to have a harvest. So as a coach, you are planting seeds inside of these kids and young adults. And if you don't tend to it properly, or you plant the wrong things, it could be a horrible harvest. So,
yeah, I think what coaches don't understand is that you literally, with your interaction with one athlete, can impact the entire globe. You may, like you said, everybody who's ever played a sport remembers one coach their whole life, whether it was for a good reason or a bad reason, but they remember that coach. And so that's something that we have to get right. We don't have to be perfect, but we have to get it right, because you're exponentially impacting the entire world just based on your interaction with one kid. They can grow up and cure COVID. They can figure out, how to help with climate change. I mean, they use the lessons that you've taught them, really, like you said, to grow and to figure out who they are as people and what their purpose on this earth is. And it's a very deep relationship, and you remember that for your entire life, really.
You really do. Because I used to be pissed off at my high school coach, for real. Like, he's yelling at me to finish and do all of this. I'm like, dude, I'm sore, like I'm hurting. But when I put it in today's time, it's adversity, that I hear his voice telling me that you can get over this. It's a mental game. You can do it. Mind over the issue, right? Just get through it, finish. And you just never know how your words may ring differently in someone years later. And you're right. They can go and legit change the world, because the same way that you're creating this village, it takes a village to create these children from the village that can be empowered to go out into the world and make all the change that maybe someone themselves felt like they couldn't do. But one thing about it, especially being a coach, I feel like it's such an honor. It's like being a teacher. It's such an honor. You have people's lives in your hand, and it's such a delicate and important job. Or I can say somewhat like being a mom, because I'm a mother, and I see things have completely changed. The perspective on life has changed because I have become a mother. And so folks have to be very cognizant, like you said earlier, about how they communicate and how they nurture these new lives, because you just don't know what the impacts of it may be.
Yeah. Everybody's a coach in some sense. If you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a supervisor, manager, of a corporation or whatever, we're all coaching people every day. And so if you have people, quote unquote, under you, you're coaching every single day.
Absolutely. I agree. So, Miss Helen, are there any, well, first, I definitely want you to tell people where they can follow you, especially all these coaches who need everything that you have to help them to develop into better people for the individuals whose lives they're impacting. So I want you to share that. And then I want you to share any tips that you may have for them to just take immediately to implement into their own lives in the way that they coach.
Sure. So the first thing would be come and join my Facebook group. It's called A Coach for the Coach. And, we have our broadcast every Sunday on my YouTube channel, Helen Williams-HMW Sports. Every Sunday at 6:30, we're talking about something different that helps coaches get better. They can find me on Twitter at HMW Sports and Instagram, A Coach for the Coach as well. So we've got some great shows coming up over the summer. Over the next few weeks, we're about to launch an e-course that will help coaches be more holistic and evolve and grow and get better at the things that are not on the court, but really, really important for your success in the program. And I guess for me, the biggest thing is to always be self-reflective and self-aware, so that you're continually evolving. We as coaches, we look at players and we go, that's what you're good at. That's what you're challenged with. So I'm going to, make up a workout, and you need to go work on that over the summer. But we don't do that for ourselves. We don't look at ourselves and go, okay, I need to get better at this. I have this end goal. And so I need to enhance these skills, or I need to acquire those skills to reach my end goal. So for me, it's really important that you are always constantly looking at yourself to see how you can evolve and get better. And again, it's always about the better you are, the better quality of experience your athlete has. That
is so true. Personal development. We can't, you can't be out here preaching things that you're not yourself doing, because children especially will call you out on it.
It's the worst thing when you have to follow your own advice. It's terrible, but you have to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Miss Helen, thank you so much for coming on to the platform. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to continue this conversation with you off of What Are You Sporting About podcast. Guys, definitely make sure that you go and follow her. I have put her links into the chat, so go ahead and do that. And just remind me really quick, did you say that your YouTube was Helen Williams?
Yeah, it's Helen Williams HMW Sports, and or you could just go to YouTube and put a coach for the coach. Either way.
Okay, so Helen Williams HMW Sports for YouTube, guys. Go ahead, make sure you check that out. And coaches, make sure you work on your own personal development. Now, we cannot be trying to preach and not following it ourselves. So preach it, but also follow your own advice. Okay, but guys, let me just remind you, go to prosportlawyer.com. Definitely make sure that you check out this book that inspired the podcast, What Are You Sporting About? But I also want you to be a part of the launch for Athletes Making Moves. Secure the future by protecting your name, image, and likeness. You can check that out at prosportlawyer.com, or you can go to Athletes Making Moves. And just as a reminder, please join our Instagram movement at Athletes Making Moves and the Facebook group with the same name. Again, my name is DeBarros, the protector of athletes, and always it is a pleasure to come here, bring amazing people on this platform, and to speak with you guys about all things sports and extra. Okay, so we can live a better life. Until next time, we'll talk to you later. Ciao.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Savania DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success, because we're all sporting about something.